My wife snapped, "Don't discipline my daughter, get your own." I just smiled at my stepdaughter and said, "All right." The next day I made a decision that turned both their worlds upside down. Hello Reddit I+ here. My name is Caleb Foster, and I'm 44 years old. For more than 2 decades, I've worked as an electrician. Not glamorous work, but steady. The kind of trade where your clothes smell like copper and drywall dust at the end of the day, but you sleep knowing you earned every cent. By 28, I owned a modest 3-bedroom ranch house just outside of St. Louis, Missouri. Paid off. My buddies were still renting 1-bedrooms and eating ramen noodles, but I had a place of my own, a garage full of tools, a lawn I kept sharp, and a kitchen that smelled of coffee every morning. That's around the time I met Rachel. She was 25 back then, a single mom raising her little girl, Sophie, who was 6. Her ex-husband had disappeared 2 years earlier. No child support, no weekend visits, not even a Christmas card. Rachel was working 2 part-time jobs to keep the lights on, her car barely held together by duct tape and prayers. And yet, she smiled. I first noticed her at a local community fundraiser, a barbecue event at the park. Sophie was tugging on her dress, asking for another hot dog, while Rachel tried to balance a plate and a cup of lemonade. She looked overwhelmed, but still graceful. When I offered to help, Rachel flashed this tired but grateful smile that hit me right in the chest. Sophie, though, she was a different story. She peeked out from behind her mom's legs, glaring at me with those cautious blue eyes, clutching a raggedy stuffed rabbit like it was her lifeline. "Sweetheart," Rachel nudged her. "This is Caleb. He's just being nice." Sophie didn't say a word. She just buried her face in her mom's jeans. It took months of dating before she warmed up to me. But there's one memory I'll never forget. The night Sophie called me Dad. Rachel was pulling a late shift at the grocery store, and I got a call from the elementary school nurse. Sophie had fallen during recess and scraped her knee badly. When I arrived, she was sitting in the office chair, legs dangling, tears streaking down her face. I knelt down, gently cleaned the wound, and stuck on a sparkly unicorn band-aid I found in the first aid box. Trying to lighten the mood, I said, "There you go, battle scar of a warrior princess." Her lip trembled, and in the softest whisper I've ever heard, she said, "Thanks, Daddy." That word froze me. It wasn't casual. It wasn't accidental. It was heavy, like she'd been saving it for someone she could finally trust. When Rachel came home that night, I told her what happened. She smiled through misty eyes. "She's been asking me for weeks if you're going to be her dad," Rachel admitted. I think she was just waiting for the right moment. From that night on, Sophie wasn't just Rachel's kid. She was mine. We married when I was 32. Sophie wore a frilly white dress and insisted on carrying both the flower basket and the ring pillow. "It's my wedding too," she had announced proudly, hands on her hips. The whole room laughed. But in my heart, I knew she was right. Saturdays became our tradition. Pancakes at the corner diner, then trips to Lowe's or Home Depot, where Sophie and I dreamed up projects. "Dad, let's build a treehouse," she'd squeal. "Sure thing," I'd grin. Though it might look more like a lopsided shed, she'd laugh, clinging to my arm like I was her whole world. And she called me Dad every single time. Not Caleb, not Mr. Foster. Dad. I opened a college fund for her when she turned 8, depositing a chunk of every paycheck. By her 13th birthday, there was nearly $20,000 saved. Friends told me I was a saint for raising another man's kid, but I didn't see it that way. She was mine. Full stop. But then came high school. At first, it was the usual teenage stuff. Rolling eyes, slammed doors, music too loud. I told myself it was a phase, but then, she stopped calling me Dad. The first time I was making dinner. "Caleb, can you pass me the salt?" she said offhandedly, scrolling on her phone. It felt like a punch to the gut. Later, when I gently asked, "Why are you calling me Caleb?" she shrugged. "Whatever. You know what I mean." Rachel brushed it off. "It's just teen stuff. Don't overthink it." But it wasn't just teen stuff. The way she looked at me changed. I wasn't Dad anymore. I was the guy who bought things. Her demands grew sharper. Designer sneakers, the latest iPhone, expensive clothes everyone else at school had. And every time I tried to draw boundaries, Rachel defended her. "She's just expressing herself," she'd say, siding with Sophie every time. But expressing herself was costing me thousands. The real breaking point came on Sophie's 16th birthday. I'd spent months saving to buy her a safe, reliable used Toyota Corolla. I wanted her to have independence without the danger of an old junker. When she unwrapped the keys and saw the car parked in the driveway, she didn't smile. She sneered. "Seriously? A Corolla? My friend Vanessa's stepdad got her a BMW." Her stepdad actually cares. Her words sliced deeper than she realized, but the real dagger came moments later. My real dad would have understood, I snapped. Your real dad? The one who vanished when you were 2? The one who couldn't even send you a birthday card? She just rolled her eyes. At least he didn't lecture me all the time. Rachel said nothing. No correction, no defense, just silence. That was the night something inside me cracked. The real storm hit a few months later. It was a summer evening. I had a couple of close friends over, guys I'd known since trade school. We were grilling steaks out on the back patio, laughing about old jobs where everything went wrong. At some point, the conversation shifted to kids and college savings. I mentioned casually, with a little pride, I've been saving since Sophie was 8. She's got enough put aside for a good in-state school. That's when Sophie came waltzing in, glued to her phone, earbuds dangling. Without looking up, she dropped a bomb. Actually, I got into NYU. Mom and I already talked about it. My fork froze halfway to my mouth. That was the first I'd heard of it. That's great news, Soph, I managed, keeping my tone steady. But we'll have to talk about finances. The college fund won't cover NYU. It's almost triple the cost of state school. She stopped scrolling, finally meeting my eyes. You're so stingy. You always make money sound like this big burden. Maybe you shouldn't have married a woman with a kid if you couldn't handle it. The patio went silent. My friends exchanged uneasy glances, and then she twisted the knife. You're not my dad. You're just some guy who pays for stuff. The words knocked the air out of me. For a moment, all I could do was stare. Then I said quietly, but firmly, you mean the stuff like this house? The clothes you wear? The car parked outside? The phone you can't let go of for 5 seconds? That's the stuff you're talking about? She scoffed, rolled her eyes and looked back at her screen. Before I could say more, Rachel jumped in. Don't lecture my daughter, Caleb. If you want to lecture someone, maybe you should have your own kids. The weight of that sentence crushed me harder than Sophie's outburst. In front of my friends, in the home I paid for, after 13 years of raising her child, Rachel didn't defend me. She told me to get my own. That night, I lay awake staring at the ceiling. By morning, my decision was made. The divorce. I went to the bank first thing, emptied the college fund, and rolled it into my retirement account. Then I called a divorce lawyer. When Rachel was served the papers, she was blindsided. What? Caleb? You can't just throw this away? She cried, clutching my arm. Think of Sophie. She needs you. I shook my head. No, Rachel, Sophie doesn't need me. She made it clear I'm not her dad. And you made it clear I'm just the ATM. I won't play that role anymore. Her face crumpled, but I didn't stop. You should have stood beside me. You should have reminded her who raised her. Instead, you let her spit in my face. That told me everything I needed to know. When Sophie overheard, she stormed into the kitchen. You can't do this. We're family, she shouted. Family? I snapped. You told me I wasn't your father, that I was just some guy who paid for things. Fine. Go find your real father. If you can. Her mouth opened, but no words came out. She just glared, eyes blazing, before slamming her bedroom door so hard the walls rattled. The divorce dragged for months. Rachel tried to claim part of my house, part of my business, even spousal support. But I'd prepared well, kept every receipt, every record, every dollar of proof that I'd carried them for 13 years. My lawyer shredded her arguments one by one. In the end, she left with almost nothing. 5 years passed. I rebuilt my life, expanded my electrical business, bought a bigger home. Peaceful, quiet, no slammed doors, no endless fights. Just me, my work, and weekends fishing with my brother. Then one afternoon, there was a knock on my door. When I opened it, my heart skipped. Rachel stood there, older, worn down, and beside her, Sophie. Except she wasn't the bright-eyed girl I remembered. She looked hollow. Her hair was messy, her eyes tired, her shoulders slumped under invisible weight. Rachel wrung her hands. Caleb, please, we need help. I raised an eyebrow. What happened? She swallowed hard. The money's gone. The car was repossessed. Sophie dropped out of NYU after the first semester. My second marriage fell apart. We've got nowhere else to go. I let out a bitter laugh. So you thought you'd come trade me in for another round? Like I'm some used car you can return to when the new one breaks down? My eyes locked on Sophie. I remembered her as a 6-year-old, handing me dandelions, whispering, "This one's for you, Daddy." And then I remembered her sneering, "You're not my dad. You just pay for stuff." You told me I wasn't your father, I said coldly. You were right. Sophie's lips trembled. For a moment, I thought she might cry, but I closed the door. It didn't take long before Rachel turned to Facebook. She posted an old photo of Sophie hugging me at a soccer game with the caption, "He raised her for 13 years, then abandoned her when she needed him most. Money mattered more than love." Half her friends called me heartless. The other half asked questions she didn't want to answer. But I had receipts. Literal ones. Bank statements showing braces, school trips, dance classes, electronics. Screenshots of texts where Sophie demanded luxury items, proof of the college fund I'd built. So instead of arguing online, I made a video. I spoke directly into the camera. How Sophie called me dad for years. How Rachel told me to get my own kids. How I was told I was just the guy who paid for things. The video went viral. Tens of thousands of comments poured in, calling out their entitlement, their manipulation. Rachel deleted her posts, but the internet never forgets. Within weeks, Rachel lost her job. Sophie was working part-time at a diner, living with one of Rachel's cousins after being evicted. Their friends stopped answering their calls. One evening, my brother Luke came by with a six-pack. "You know," he said after a long silence, "you did everything you could. You gave her a dad when she didn't have one. And when she threw it away, you gave her the lesson life was going to teach her anyway, that nothing is free." For the first time in years, I believed him. Years later, by chance, I saw Sophie again. She was waiting tables at that same diner. Hair pulled back, circles under her eyes, smile forced. For a moment, our eyes locked through the glass. Recognition hit us both. She froze, tray in hand. I thought maybe she'd run outside, maybe say, "I'm sorry," but she didn't. She just stared, and I realized something. Whatever words she might have said wouldn't change the truth. I gave her the faintest nod, polite, distant, and then I walked away. Because she was right. I wasn't her father. I was the man who chose to be her dad, and she chose to throw that away. Walking out of that diner, I half expected to feel that old anger crawl back into my chest, the kind that used to sit in my stomach like a lump of coal when Rachel and Sophie would cut me down in my own house. But instead, I felt something strange, peace, not the happy sunshine kind, the quiet, heavy kind, the kind that settles on you when you finally stopped fighting battles that were never yours to win. For years after the divorce, I replayed Sophie's words in my head like a broken record. "You're not my dad. You're just the guy who pays for stuff." Every time it cut deeper. Every time I wondered if I had failed her. But seeing her through that diner glass, eyes sunken, shoulders slumped, tray trembling in her hand, I realized something. Life had already given her the answers I could never force on her. You don't spit in the hand that feeds you. You don't burn the bridge and demand to cross it. And you don't throw away the only father you've ever had and expect him to keep standing there waiting. The silence of my house after the divorce used to drive me insane. I'd walk past Sophie's empty bedroom and hear echoes of the little girl who once begged me to build her a treehouse, who once called me daddy, in a nurse's office with tears running down her cheeks. I'd shut the door to that room for weeks at a time, because opening it felt like reopening a wound. But slowly, that silence became peace. I poured myself into my business, hired apprentices, kids straight out of trade school, rough around the edges, but hungry to learn. I taught them wiring, circuits, how to troubleshoot panels, but also how to show up, shake a hand, take pride in their work. Funny thing, after a while, they started calling me Pops. At first it was a joke, then it stuck, and I realized something. Fatherhood isn't just biology. It's showing up. It's teaching, protecting, guiding. It's the choice you make every day. And I was still a father, just not to the girl I once called my daughter. Word about Rachel trickled back to me through friends, through Luke, through whispers in our small St. Louis circles. She remarried quick after the divorce. Some insurance adjuster, big talker, lasted 3 years before he left her for a younger woman. Took the little savings she had and left her in debt. She bounced from job to job, receptionist, retail, a short stint as an office assistant. But her temper, her entitlement, always caught up with her. By the time Luke ran into her at a bar one night, he told me she looked 20 years older, hair dyed cheap and brittle, skin lined, eyes empty. "Life's been chewing her up, spitting her out," he said. I didn't feel joy hearing it. Didn't even feel vindication. Just pity and a deep, unshakable confirmation that walking away when I did had saved my life. And Sophie? The bright-eyed 6-year-old who once handed me dandelions in the yard? She was gone. She barely lasted a semester at NYU before dropping out. Money trouble, homesickness, bad grades. After that, she tried community college, dropped out again, worked retail, waitressed, moved in with Rachel's cousin after an eviction. Every story I heard about her felt like watching a photograph fade in the sun. But I never reached out, because she had made her choice. 2 years after seeing her at the diner, I got a letter, handwritten, addressed simply, Caleb Foster. I almost didn't open it, but something told me I should. Inside, 1 page. The handwriting was shaky, but I recognized it. "Caleb, I don't expect you to forgive me. I don't even know if you'll read this, But I wanted you to know I was wrong. About everything. You were my dad, the only one I ever had, and I threw it away. I don't blame you for closing the door. I just wanted you to know I'm sorry. Sophie. I sat with that letter for a long time. I didn't cry. I didn't rush to call her. I didn't draft a reply. I just folded it back into the envelope, tucked it into my nightstand drawer, and sat in the quiet. Because some wounds don't heal with words. Not long after that letter, Rachel tried her old tricks again. Another Facebook post. Another sob story about how I abandoned them. Old photos dredged up. Sophie tagged, though she didn't comment. But this time, the response was different. People remembered my video. The receipts. The truth. Instead of sympathy, Rachel got silence. And then ridicule. Old friends called her out publicly. Weren't you the one who told him to get his own kids? Her post vanished within hours. And for the first time, I realized her power was gone. 3 years later, I saw Sophie again, not at the diner, at a hospital. Luke had dislocated his shoulder at work, and I was waiting in the ER when I heard my name. Caleb? I turned and there she was. Sophie. Older, thinner, scrubs on, a hospital badge clipped to her chest. She was working, as a CNA I later learned. Barely above minimum wage, but steady work. Her eyes widened when she saw me. I didn't think I'd see you again. We stood there, strangers with too much history. I got your letter, I said finally. Tears welled instantly in her eyes. She opened her mouth, closed it, tried again. I meant it. Every word. I was stupid. And I ruined everything. For a long time I didn't answer. Just studied her face. The same blue eyes that once looked up at me from behind her mother's jeans at that barbecue all those years ago. Finally I said, "You didn't ruin everything, Sophie. You ruined what we had, and that's different." Her lip trembled. Can we ever fix it? I sighed, the weight of years pressing down. I don't know. Maybe, but not today. Her tears spilled over, but she nodded. That's fair. And then she walked away down the hall, shoulders shaking. That was the last time I saw her. Sometimes I wonder if she ever got her life fully together, if she ever found peace with herself. But here's what I know. Her rejection doesn't erase who I was. For 13 years, I was a father. I was there for the bedtime stories, the soccer games, the pancakes at the diner. I was her dad. Whether she chooses to remember it that way or not. And nothing, not her words, not Rachel's betrayal, not the years that followed, can take that from me. So when people ask me if I regret it, if I wish I'd never stepped in at that barbecue all those years ago, I tell them this: no, I don't regret it. Because I'd rather have been a father who was rejected than a man who never had the courage to be one at all.